Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. This is my first Christmas, by the way, and I went to my first Christmas Mass last night at midnight, which was interesting to see the less. I have interesting observations when I come to the Catholic Mass. It's not my first time going to one. I have different opinions on it. It's very ritualistic, and when you look at like the MBTI side of it, it makes a lot of sense. My personal opinion on when it comes to like Catholic Mass and churches and just the religion in general is you have obviously the SJ centeredness of it, which is typical of all religions because SJs are going to be your bread and butter, your main foundation of any religion. And so you have a lot of traditional stuff that doesn't make any sense to people who are not really part of the faith. And I think about SJs is also if you look at Catholic Mass, is a lot of the robes the priests and everybody was wearing has been around for 1,000 years, if not more. Thousands of years, and definitely holding on to a tradition. It definitely has a lot of pomp and ritual to it. The incense, which I hated, by the way, because it would make me cough, and it was just everywhere, and the smoke and all this kind of crap. There was just a lot of weird stuff that doesn't make any sense to people who are not Catholic. Now, while watching it with Ian TJ, who was raised Catholic, you were Catholic for 19 years?
I don't know exactly the amount.
Well, anyways, he went to Catholic school, elementary, middle school, and high school?
12 years, grade school and high school.
Yeah. And so, I mean, even he's not even a believer in it anymore. And but he's next to me. Every single little ritual thing they say, and he does all the the robotic answers and respondings, like everyone else was. And so definitely a lot of stuff that makes a lot of sense when you grow up in it. I mean, witnesses are no different. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense. It kind of just made me think of like the memorial when I converted, my ex to being a witness, and he had to go to the memorial, and he's an ESFJ, and I mean, he was definitely appalled by just the disrespect of communion being treated that way because witnesses just observe, you don't partake of the bread and the wine. And essentially, it's the annual rejection of the Christ, not really the annual acceptance because, they have their own kind of rules about who takes the bread, who takes the wine. And if you just read the Bible alone, anybody who professes to be a Christian should be partaking. Now, you did half of communion yesterday.
I did all of it.
No, you didn't. You didn't drink the wine.
You don't have to drink the wine. Communion is the bread.
Don't listen to him.
The body of Christ.
He's lying.
No.
He's supposed to drink the blood too.
No.
But anyways, why did you not drink the wine? Because you didn't want to get herpes.
Concerns about STDs. Since my teens, it's like I've always been.
So,
I'm a Nazi about STDs. I will take no risk for STDs.
So remember that because ENTJs are always germaphobes. Every single one I've known, and it's interesting about them. And so so he went and took the cracker and ate it, and so he participated in cannibalism last night, and this morning, sorry. And then, but he did not drink the blood, and so because it's literal in the Catholic faith, and
I'm not a vampire.
it was just interesting to me. So you have the pomp and tradition that's thousands of years old that just makes the SJs just like wet. There's like, oh God, yes. And then, but as an SP, for instance, which would be the second most popular people in the Catholic Church, why would they like to go to it? And sitting next to the ENTJ, and he was like, oh my God, look at that. They're like, Catholics have a lot of physical things to look at. Their buildings are so beautiful and grandiose, and SE users just love all that shit. And so they had, gorgeous art. Catholic churches always have like gold or fine wood or just like the nicest of stuff, and all this pomp ceremony also with like the holding the different Bibles that were like gold and stuff. And to like a witness, this is just absolutely blasphemous, and it's just like the showy display of one's means of life. That would use that kind of scripture, and a lot of conservative Christian faiths are like that too. They held that against Catholics, and the fact that they make physicality very grandiose and very important in their ritual and their ceremonies. And it was just really bizarre to me because I'm watching like the priest read from looks like a Bible, I think, and like one of the altar boys was holding it for him while he had his hands up. I mean, he wasn't doing anything with his hands, so I didn't understand why he did that. But I guess, it's tradition, so you don't have to have a reason to do it. It's just what you've always done.
It's a show of reverence to God.
Okay. I don't know how that does that, but it's just like, to me also, there's not a lot of fluidity to me when I watch Catholic Mass, because it's just like every part's like maybe 2 minutes max long, and then another thing happens. But I noticed that most people in the congregation kind of knew what was happening, and then no one had to say anything. There was no instructions. Like, everyone knew what was going on but me. And to me, it was just like someone goes up there and they go, "From the Holy Gospel according to Luke," and everyone repeats like a bunch of parrots. And
They don't say according. Anyway, go ahead.
what did they say?
I'm reading from the something according to. I think they even give the verse and stuff according to whichever book it's from, and then they might say "Praise be to God" or something like that.
Okay, whatever. It's still, I don't know. Everyone, parrots together and like this. And well, anyways, and so it's just like, and one thing I had issues with every time I've gone to Catholic Mass too is mostly, and you made this clear last night because I asked about it, about you don't really learn anything at Mass. And it's like, really, you go up there, they read a couple verses from a book of the Bible, and then they get away. No one explains anything, everything, which makes sense to me. All my Catholic friends, I worked at a restaurant in Napa. There was about 12 family members, a very large Catholic family, and every single one of them had a different belief. And so you could take the Catholic Mass information, go home, and come to your own conclusions. It's not like as cultish as the Jehovah's Witness, because everyone has to believe the same thing as witnesses. And so that's something you noticed. And so when you go to Mass, you don't go away and say, "Oh, I really like that point," and you reflect on different things. Apparently, education in Catholic, it comes from the schooling, if at all.
There's different sources. There's all kinds of different sources, but either school and people who don't go to a Catholic school, they get what's called catechism.
Yeah.
It's usually on Wednesday nights where they go. It's like all the various levels you go to learn doctrine as far as what it is. There's different groups. They've got retreats, things that people go away for to learn how to better their marriages. Bible-based. There's all kinds of things like that where you can do various activities to learn more about belief, the Bible, and everything else. You got multiple options to learn from. But the point of the Mass is it's called Mass it's the gathering of the people. It's an expression as a group of your communal love for God expressed through the Catholic ritual. There is a lot of ritual that's part of it. This comes from Roman times. You notice there's also a lot of processions. Anywhere in the world where you see processions, that's almost always something that came, probably some other societies, but Romans were big on processions and just the formation. It's almost like a military, the way they're marching and doing stuff, but they're usually holding something out front as far as a symbol of what it's about. You got the people behind kind of in rank or order. But yeah, there's a lot of ritual to it, but it's about the participation of it as a group. But you also have the liturgy. That's where you might learn something or you get inspiration, where the priest will talk about something. And he was talking about his inspiration for last night was what the Pope brought up years ago. He said there were three things as far as...
So...
He was talking about ways to heal wounds, things that you've been hurt by. But the third point was about seeing the world through a child's eyes, and this he was tying in with the birth of Christ, the Christ child, and how he would have viewed the world as an infant, and also with children, how children view Christmas, that innocence, that just the everything of how a child views Christmas. He was tying all that together as far as adults, we can probably use that for inspiration for how we see things and improve our own viewpoint and how we approach problems.
Yeah. And like I said last night, the priest definitely looked bored to me, and like he really didn't want to be there, and which was interesting. And it kind of like witnesses kind of got that way too sometimes when they gave a talk that they gave over and over again, and it was just kind of like redundant and uninteresting to them. And I don't know. And so it's interesting to me with the Catholic Mass. I wanted to do it. I don't think it's something I'll ever do again. But it is part of Christmas. I do like Catholic music for the most part, and that's fun. It's interesting to look at the, information as from an agnostic point of view. In the past, when I watched it, when I was still a believer in most of what Jehovah's Witnesses taught, I had a very judgmental attitude. And last night, it was just very indifferent. I just didn't really care. It's just, like I tell other people, I might as well be listening to some guy talk about Hercules fighting the Hydra, and that's how interesting it was to me. It didn't really have much meaning. But anyways, those are my thoughts on Mass. Merry Christmas to everybody, and thanks for listening.